Welcome to week 9 and our intro to Illustrator this week. We're moving away from Photoshop and to Illustrator for the next 5 weeks, I believe, and I'm really excited. This is my favorite part of the class, and we get to do a lot of fun stuff and we get a fun project. You guys all did fantastic with your Photoshop project, and I wanted to make sure to let you know if you didn't get a notification that I put your grade in, and that I also put a comment for each of you in the rubric portion of the assignment. So it's not posted in the comments, I actually posted it into the rubric. So if you didn't know that was there, to make sure and go check it, because I commented on everybody who turned in something. Got a, gotta find my right list of stuff to talk about. Got a comment to their project page. So thank you for that and for your hard work on Photoshop. And we're going to be moving into Illustrator. I had a couple things to show you, like a show and tell. I went to San Francisco over the weekend and found a really cool book, which is right here, this design book, which is pretty cool. And you guys know I'm in love with design books, and it has all kinds of fun stuff inside of it. And I found it at the Japanese bookstore. And from there, I went to the Japanese grocery store. And I don't even drink, but I always end up in the beverage section. Look at the illustrations on these little glasses of sake, which that is a ton of sake. Normally, if you've ever seen it, it's drank in tiny, tiny little cups that are like this. So this has got to be like 8 servings of sake. But this illustrator, he actually did some history books. They're actually like, what do you call those books? Like graphic novel history books on Japan. And then he did, these just happened to be on the shelf at the store, and I thought they were so cool. So I grabbed them up, and maybe I'll just pour the liquor out of them at some point and keep the glasses. But that was fun. And that was just kind of like a creative renewal for me to just kind of get out of Sacramento, away from my desk, away from the computer. And I'm always looking at packaging and books. Those are probably 2 of my favorite things to see when it comes to design. So I just couldn't wait to share those things with you guys. So that that's my little show and tell for the week. Christina, you mentioned that you had been to Adobe Max. Did anyone else do any of the Design Week or Adobe Max online things the last couple of weeks? Staying busy with class? Yeah, okay, good. So you may have noticed our module was kind of overwhelming this week, but just ease into it. We've got a lot to cover in the next few weeks. So it seems like a lot, but you guys shouldn't have a problem. It's now that we've got one Adobe application under our belt. My expectation of you is that you can do a little more because you're more comfortable just in the Adobe software as a whole, now that we've got Photoshop under our belt. I'm going to give you a tour of Illustrator. And then how many, if any of you, have already watched the Design Dojo Adobe Illustrator tour? Have any of you? Riley, Christina's looked at it a little bit. What I usually do for this class, this first class of Illustrator, is watch it together. I'll share my screen. I'll put the video on as the primary screen that you guys are seeing. And then I will pause it and kind of elaborate on anything that he says that I think is worth talking about extra. But before I do that, I want to just share my screen and show you just kind of like an overview tour of Illustrator, the same as what we did for Photoshop, and just show you the workspace and go over a couple of things. I'm going to throw you guys up here on my other monitor, and I'm going to share my screen. And let me just do my entire desktop. Whoa. Okay, so you guys should now see my Illustrator workspace, correct? Yeah, okay. So the Illustrator workspace greatly resembles any of the Adobe workspaces. Let me just go to the home screen. The home screen is where you would start off if you're creating a new document, if you want to open a file that you've been working on recently, or you just kind of want to see some of the things that Illustrator has to offer right off the bat. There are a ton of templates, which is really cool, a ton of presets as far as the size of the document that you're going to work on. And then it also has links to tutorials, which is going to take you to the Adobe website. And there's just a ton of them, and they're all awesome. They're all worth doing. We do some of them in this class, and you'll find them in the modules from week to week. But this is also something that you can access from the home screen. So this is the same as our home screen in Photoshop, only it's Illustrator. And then when you go into Illustrator, I switched it to the Essentials workspace. Normally, I have my custom Nikki workspace, and we talked about how to do this in Photoshop, where if you customize the panels that you like and the tools that you like, tools are again on the left and your panels are on the right, your control bar is across the top. You can customize it and then save your workspace just by saying new workspace once you have it all set up, and save it. I like mine the way I have it. These are ones I use all the time, so I always go back to it. But Essentials or Essentials Classic is kind of a good place to start. Your panels are going to still be on the right and your tools on the left. They're just going to pare down what you have to work with. With Illustrator also, just like Photoshop, there's extra tools under some of the tools. If you see a little triangle in the bottom right, that means there's other tools underneath that top tool. I'm going to switch back to mine. And then the other thing is turning the rulers on and off. I always like to have my rulers on, which is Command R. And that's generally kind of what your workspace looks like. The control bar across the top, where in Photoshop, it changed whatever tool you had selected, and you're able to make modifications to how that tool worked in the control panel. In Illustrator, it works a little bit different, and the control panel actually changes depending on what object you have selected on your artboard. Right now I have a completely empty artboard, but if I was to throw a square onto my artboard and then maybe a bit of text, my control panel is going to change depending on what I'm doing rather than what tool I have. So right now I have text selected, so everything in the control panel is text related. If I was to select this object, this rectangle, now everything has changed in my control panel so that I can make modifications to that object. That's one of the big differences just in the workspace and in what you see when you're working in Illustrator compared to Photoshop. A lot of the tools are going to look the same, but they're going to be working, rather than with pixels, you're going to be working with vector art, and you're going to be working with what has always reminded me of dot to dot, but you're going to be working with these anchor points, and you're going to be working with the lines in between the anchor points. And it's something that takes a lot of practice, and you're going to get some practice in this class. You're going to get to work with the pen tool, you're going to be working with the shapes tools, and you're going to be creating vector shapes and vector artwork and vector designs with Illustrator. So don't get frustrated, give yourself a break and take your time, because working with the pen tool is tricky. The shapes are all under the shape tool, top one being a rectangle. And then the other thing that's helpful, you've got a rectangle, you've got an ellipse, and then you've got a polygon and a star. You will never need more than that in this class. Play with all of them. And then the pencil tool is another one that's kind of fun to use for creating vector designs. So you'll get a chance to play with that a little bit in this class as well. Your panel library is located under Window, just the same as Photoshop, in alphabetical order. These are all of the panels that are available in Illustrator. Your Illustrator menu is across the top, and then your toolbar is here. I recommend starting with essentials, but adding stuff that comes up either in tutorials or in the exercises that you're given until you have a point where you might want to save that workspace and kind of have one that you go back to and can always reset. The ones we'll use a lot in this class are going to be your swatches panel. Your character panel is all of your fonts. The Pathfinder for creating shapes, modifying shapes, combining shapes, and then kind of a catch-all one, which is it's a good panel to have open all the time. You guys will want to open this one, is the properties panel, because the properties panel, like the control bar at the top, is going to change depending on what you have selected in your artboard, whether it's text or a line or a shape, and you're able to make all kinds of modifications to that object using the properties panel. So that's a real good one to familiarize yourself with too. So that's just kind of Illustrator 101, very general tour of the workspace. And what I want to do next is just use the Design Dojo video. And this is the file that they provide you. It is available to download in the module for this week. And then I wanted to show you guys to their website. So Design Dojo is a kind of not-for-profit website that has all of these really cool tutorials and challenges where you can go on and take their tests and play around. There's Elements and Principles, Graphics 101, and then Illustrator and Photoshop for the two that will apply to us. And there's quizzes, and there's challenges and tutorials, and it's a lot of fun. I just use kind of their Illustrator overview ones, which is what we're going to watch, this white belt challenge where he takes us through, where he takes us through this basics file, which is a really cool file, and he does all of the things that you're going to need for this class. He covers everything. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to start the video. I'm going to share my screen to start it, and then I'm going to pause and jump over to the Illustrator file when there's something more that I want to show you that maybe he doesn't elaborate on. Is that cool with everybody? We're all good? Okay. I'm going to jump over to this. I don't want it humongous, but I want it big enough so you guys can see it. Let's see here.
Hey there, designers. Ronan.
Hey there. Let's see here. I don't want full screen, right? Because I still want the controller. But I want it big. That's big for you guys, right? All right, let's just do this, and then I'll jump over when
he
needs to. So what I recommend, and I just want to reiterate this for all of the tutorial videos, the ones that you guys do on your own, as well as any that I show you during the Zoom, is to take notes before you participate. So take notes, and then there will often be a file to download, a starter file. After you watch the video through once and have taken notes and kind of familiarized yourself on what's going to be covered in the video, then you can go back and try everything that's covered in the video. And that's going to be the best way to learn with these videos. It's going to be good practice and the best way to kind of get it to set in your head. So we're going to watch this together, and I'm going to pause it when I want to elaborate on something that he says.
Eager to teach you the way of Adobe Illustrator. But before we begin, make sure to visit designdojo.org and to download the White Belt Mastery Challenge. All right, open that file up and get ready to do this. As a first step, let's set up Illustrator's workspace to show just the essentials by cruising right up here to the workspace options and selecting Essentials. This will put the Tools panel on the left side and the ever so useful Properties panel on the right. Okay, let's begin your ascent of Mount Vector. Starting at level 1, where we learn about navigation in Illustrator, just hold down the spacebar to access the hand tool and drag your mouse to move up, down, left, or right. Once you've got the hang of it, pan on up to level 2. There are a ton of ways to zoom in Illustrator, but since you just learned how to use the spacebar to get the hand tool, it might be easiest to use spacebar plus command to zoom in and out. Do note that you do need to press spacebar then command, because command then spacebar brings up the spotlight search on a Mac. All right, move right over this mysterious red dot and hold down the spacebar and command, and then drag to the right to zoom on in. And behold, one of the big secrets of vector graphics revealed. That is, vector graphics never get pixelated. Okay, to zoom back out, try out the spacebar and command combo again, but this time drag to the left to zoom out. Great. Now, if getting the whole document to center nicely is a bit tricky, try out one more keyboard shortcut, Command 0, to fit the document perfectly on your screen.
Okay, so Command 0 or Control 0 if you're on a PC is a great way to get your
Okay,
workspace.
When you're ready, zoom on in to
your workspace to fit perfectly within your screen. All of the options for that are under View. If it's not working for some reason, you can go under your File menu and there's zooming in and out, fit the artboard to the window. Fitting all to your window is if you have multiple artboards. That's something that is more useful. It's an option in Photoshop, but we end up using it more in Illustrator, and often I will have a second artboard to use as a staging area for whatever I'm designing on my primary artboard. When you fit all in the window, it's going to show you all of your artboards within what you can see on your screen. All of your view options are under the View menu, and there's a lot of them. One of the things that I want to point out to you guys and make sure that you have turned on is Smart Guides. When Smart Guides are turned on, it gives you like a little hint. Can you see to the upper left of my cursor or my little arrow, my move tool, how it's giving me a notation of what I'm near? It just says edge right now. And it also is giving me an X and Y coordinate for where I am. This is a path. This is also a path. This is an anchor point that I'm hovering over. The Smart Guides give you help, and they give you extra information. So I like to have them on kind of on a regular basis. Every once in a while, I will turn them off if they're getting in the way and I'm really trying to zoom in and work on something and it's blocking my view. That's pretty much the only time I turn Smart Guides off. Also, if there's a check mark next to any of the guide things, that means that it's turned on. Snapping is something that means that anytime you're moving an object and you're getting close to a grid, a pixel, a point, or a glyph, it's going to snap right to those things. And that's another thing that can be frustrating when you're really zoomed in on your design and you're trying to do something with a little bit of finesse and it keeps pulling you and snapping over to a point or to a grid. Check and see if that is on and turn it off, because that'll give you more control. It's nice when you're working with something that you want to be lined up and you want it on a grid or you want it to snap to a certain point. But sometimes when you're moving things and you want to have as much control as possible, you need to have that turned off. Otherwise, it's going to keep pulling your your cursor and your object to a certain point. So the view menu, he's giving you key commands for controlling your zooming in and out, but it's good to know where they are on your menu as well. So I'm gonna go back and keep playing this.
Level 3. Level 3 introduces the concept of selecting. Press V to get the black arrow and click on the dragon's tail. Notice there's now a blue line running down the middle. This line is a vector path. And once you've selected a vector path, you can do pretty much anything to it. For starters, let's change the stroke weight and its color. Over here in the Properties panel, you see a value of 22. This is the stroke's weight. If you click the arrow or select from the drop-down list, or probably easiest of all, scroll up and down in this area, you'll see the tail get wider or thinner. As for color, if you move just to the left over this gold square, that is the stroke color. Click on this square and you'll see the basic RGB color palette that you can use to change the color of the tail. All right, now that you understand about stroke, pan on up to level 4 to learn about the fill. Okay, every vector path has both a stroke and a fill. Stroke is pretty intuitive because it's how we draw, but fill can be a little tricky at first. Just imagine that you can fill in a shape with any color or gradient or pattern you want, and that is the fill. And if you don't want to fill, that's an option too. Just select the path and press the / tool to choose no fill. Notice how the fill in the Properties panel now has a red diagonal line. This red diagonal line is Adobe speak for none. So in this case, it means no fill. All right, now that you understand stroke and fill, let's slide on up to level 5 and do some transforming. All right, so the black arrow not only selects paths that you want to change, it is your one-stop shop for transforming. Let's prove it by breaking these boards. First, select the hand and then click one of the corners of this bounding box. And notice that by default, the object will scale or transform freely and things can get pretty weird. So to lock proportions, be sure to hold down Shift or Shift and Option to lock and scale from the center so that the shape stays proportional. Once you feel like the hand is big enough, use the black arrow to move it.
So did you guys get that? Shift to scale proportionately. That is something that is different from Photoshop. It used to be the same in Photoshop, but now Photoshop, it scales proportionally without holding a key command. But in Photoshop, if you want something to scale proportionally and not look stretched or tweaked strangely in any way, you're going to want to hold Shift anytime you size an object. So that's key, a key command to use.
Simply dragging down. All right, now click on the board and notice it's actually 2 objects. To rotate these objects, just select one and move just outside the corner of the bounding box, and you'll see a rotate icon. Notice that if you hold down Shift while you're rotating, it will snap to 45-degree increments. All right, the black arrow has one more secret. Hold down Shift and click both boards. And then if you hold down Option and drag, notice that the black arrow is also a copying tool. But some transformations require real precision. Pan on over to level 6 and let's try out some transform options in the Properties panel.
Did you guys all get that? He did it really quickly, but when you want to copy an object, let's say you're drawing a flower and you've created a perfect petal and you want to duplicate that petal around the center of a flower, with the move tool, the black arrow, if you hold down Option and then click and drag on that petal, it's going to duplicate anything you have selected and are dragging as long as you're holding down Option. When you click off of it, you can click on the next thing, hold down Option and drag and copy that way as well. There's also key commands for copying and pasting. Those are pretty universal, Command C and Command V. And it's also under the File menu to copy and paste if you want to go just that route as well. But a shortcut is just Option click and drag with that move tool in order to copy. And your object has to be selected in order to option drag. If you're option dragging and you're, for some reason it's not selected, it's not going to copy it, and it's going to, you've got to do things in the right order with objects selected before you apply anything to them in order for them to work. So again, it's practice and a bit of finesse with, and getting used to working with vector and working with objects in Illustrator.
Okay, when you need to move, scale, or rotate in some exact way, the Properties panel allows you to type in exact values and even do basic math functions to be very precise. The Properties panel also offers the easiest way to reflect objects. So click this icon to flip the ninja the other way. Whew, that was close.
So I am a huge advocate for precision, and that's one of the things that I love about Illustrator is you can type in exactly what point you want something to fall on, things to, you know, the 32nd of an inch, or if you're doing work for web, you're using pixels, you can go down to, you know, a half of a pixel and have things aligned. Using the, do you guys just all see yourselves right now? On the share screen? Do you still see the Illustrator? Okay, cool. I just moved my picture of all of you guys, so I'm not looking up because it's weird when I look up. I will often key in using the transform panel the exact X and Y coordinates or where I want something to fall. I'm working on a business card right now, and business cards, standard business card size is 3.5 by 2. So you can use the align tool and have Illustrator automatically set something to the middle of that artboard that you're using, which in this case is a 3.5 by 2 inch business card size artboard. And then you'll see in the transform panel that it's precisely where it needs to be. You know, 1 3/4 by 1 inch is at the center point. Now, if you see, can you see, let me go to Illustrator so I can show you this.
And when you're ready, pan on up.
We're not ready. Okay, so right now in Illustrator, oops. Sorry, I'm gonna just move you guys. In the properties panel, I'm gonna select the ninja. Where are you, ninja? Okay, so I've selected the ninja, which is actually a collection of objects that have been grouped together. The move tool, the selection tool, is going to always select everything that's grouped. If you use the direct selection tool, you can get in and select just individual parts of a grouped piece of artwork. So that is something that you'll work with a little bit more in some other exercises. And he hasn't covered that here, but what I wanted to show you is, so let me use the selection tool and select the whole ninja again. So in the transform panel, do you see this little grid right here? It's like a 3 by 3 grid with a dot in the middle. The X and Y coordinates that it's giving is based on the middle right now of the ninja. Well, you can move that. If you want to know the coordinates for the top left, you just click on the top left of that, and it will tell you what the coordinates of are that. For instance, with the business card, if I want some piece of art or some block of text to fall 1/4 of an inch down and 1/4 of an inch over, I'm not going to want to do it from the center point. I'm going to want to do it from that top left corner. So make sure when you're checking your coordinates that you're aware of where your reference point is set in this transform panel or up here up top in the control panel. So right now it's set to the center. He's using these little cool flippy icons to flip the ninja, which are awesome. Those are also under the drop down menu for oh, there isn't one. Drop down menu for the transform panel you can flip. And then I believe you can also flip in the control bar at the top somewhere, you know, to play with it and find it. But again, the properties panel is kind of a catch-all. It has a ton of useful stuff depending on what piece of artwork you have selected. But that reference point, that reference point is super important on the transform, any of your transform object panels. So let me go back to this.
To level 7, embrace yourself for the ferocious bunny. Level 7 will teach you about the white arrow, but before we bust out that tool, let's zoom way in on the bunny's face using spacebar command, and now press the A key to get the white arrow. First, use the white arrow to click the corners of her nose, and notice that the path now has 3 tiny squares on each corner. These squares are anchor points, corner anchor points to be exact. And if you click one, notice that it turns blue to show that it's selected. And when it's selected, you can drag them around all day long and change the shape. All right, now select the bunny's mouth and notice that these anchor points are a bit different because they have lines that stick out with a white circle attached. These are curve anchor points, which have handles that allow you to change not only the position, but the curve of the point as well. All right, try dragging both the points and the handles around to see how you can change the bunny's mood. Very nice. If you got this far, it looks like you are all set and have rightly earned your white belt. So use the spacebar to pan on up to the Design Dojo and follow the instructions on the door to reveal the secrets within.
Okay, I'm gonna let you guys do that part on your own so I don't reveal the secrets within, so you get at least a little surprise. Let me escape out of that.
And when you're ready, visit the Design Dojo.
No. Did you see it? Did it show you? I have to stop sharing and it's so far away. Okay, there. Screen sharing is off. I see all of your faces again. Okay, so that was kind of a really good overview of the main tools that you're going to use, how to use them. It gives you a chance to practice and to kind of follow along with him, which is fun, on kind of an interesting, cool graphic. Does anyone have any questions just on that very kind of basic overview of Illustrator? You're going to get into Illustrator on your own with tutorials and exercises week to week. And then we have our big project that we'll be working on a little bit each week as well. So questions, comments? Are you guys, yeah, Christina. Yeah.
What's the difference between the pen tool and the pencil tool?
So let me show you. So the pen tool is going to work with anchor points. So every time you draw using the pen tool, what you're going to be doing is essentially creating anchor points, whether it be a curved anchor point or just a straight line anchor point. So grab the pen tool, which is P on the keyboard. If I click once, I've got an anchor point. If I hold down shift, I can get a perfectly straight line, or I can go in any direction I want. You can see my smart guides are picking up. When I move my cursor around, it's giving me things that I might want to line up with based on other artwork that's on my artboard. This is showing how I can line up with the edge of the square I created earlier. If I just click once again, it's going to create a straight line. If I click and drag, it's going to give me one of the anchor points that have the handles to create a curved line. So the only thing that you can do with the pen tool is create lines, whether they be curved lines or whether they be straight lines. It's anchor point, anchor point, anchor point. Now, the pencil tool, which used to be a bummer to use because you would go and it allows you to click and drag and just kind of free draw. And then it's going to put anchor points in for you. It used to be real finicky and real hard. And you would sometimes use it to maybe trace a piece of artwork, or you'd place a photo and lock that photo and then want to draw over it. And it wouldn't work. It would snap off and give you a real rough estimation of what you had drawn. But the pencil tool has actually gotten better. And if you double click on a lot of the tools in the toolbar, it will pop open with options for that tool. The pencil tool now allows you to adjust the fidelity of your drawing and of your mouse movement or your pen movement if you're using a Wacom tablet, so that you can draw with more accuracy. So it's gotten kind of fun. And using a Wacom tablet with a pen tool is a fun way to use the pencil tool. I have never been able to adjust to using a pen or pencil tool on the computer as far as like a Wacom tablet or even with my iPad. I still like a mouse. But this is where you would make those adjustments for your accuracy, and it can change how the pencil tool works. So freeform kind of drawing, it's still going to create vector, it's still going to create anchor points, curved and otherwise, but you can just click and keep going. If you want to pick up where you left off, you just kind of hover near an open anchor point, one that's still it's at the end of a path, and you can pick up where you left off, and it's just going to add an addition to that. Another cool thing that you can do with the pencil tool is, like, say I'm not happy with this curve, it has like a weird lump on it, I can just draw over it and it'll change that path and like smooth it out to the best of however I'm drawing on it, which is kind of cool too. You can add like a completely different shape to that path. So the pencil tool is definitely versatile and it's definitely a lot of fun. It doesn't have the precision that the pen tool does, but they're both, they both have their worth. They're just different. That answer that question?
Yes,
and
thank you.
Often the pencil tool is lost in the toolbar for some reason. It'll get buried under another tool that's the default front tool. I just remember that the pencil tool is N because of Nikki. It's super dumb, but that's how I always remember where the pencil tool is. So I just use the key Command N to find it every time. So does anyone else have any other questions? Are you guys ready to get started in Illustrator?
I had one problem when I was doing that. I couldn't get the thing to zoom out. I could get it to zoom in, but I had a hard time getting it to zoom back out.
Zoom out. So it's just a matter of, let's see here, moving your, let me see if it works on mine, because sometimes it works on mine and sometimes I have to restart Illustrator. And it's almost as if too many commands have happened and the RAM is maxed out and I have to restart to get the moving of the mouse to the left or the right to work. Riley, and I've noticed that for me too, and I don't know why. It's a glitchy thing with Illustrator. The other day I was working so fast and I had done so many things that I couldn't zoom at all with the key command. I had to use the view menu, and finally I just restarted my whole computer to get it to work. So I don't have a quick solution for you on that one. I think it is just a RAM issue and a glitch when Illustrator just has done too much, and it doesn't want to shortcut anymore.
Okay.
Oh, let me screen grab you guys so I don't forget. I always forget to do that, and I want to make sure that's done. So I give you all credit for being here. All right, well, I'm going to cut you guys loose. Let me just, while you're here, is everyone happy still with this Tuesday at 3 o'clock time slot? We're all good with it. You guys would be good with it because you guys are the ones that show up. I'm starting my other class and I was going to do them every week at 4:30. So I do you guys back to back, but I'm a little worried that that's going to get crazy, especially if we go over, and we have gone over a couple of times. So I think I'm going to open up a Wednesday slot, and I was going to give you guys first dibs if you wanted Wednesday at 4 instead of Tuesday at 3. But if we want to stay Tuesday at 3, that's what we're going to do. You guys are good with that? All right, I'm going to cut you loose. I'll stick around if anyone has any questions, but fantastic work on finishing up Photoshop, and I'm really excited for Illustrator. It's a lot of fun. It's really different from Photoshop, so you kind of have to let go the things that you've learned the last 3 weeks and start fresh, but it's really fun. It's going to be a good time. Okay, thank you guys.